Hello and welcome back to the BenD and PhilB show. As always, I'm BenD and sitting to my left, he doesn't care about 47% of the country. It's Phil Bowerly.
Oh, whatever.
Just so everyone knows, that comment was made in jest, but it's totally true. 47% of the country will not vote for PhilB.
So we're going to start tonight by talking about The Walking Dead. This Walking Dead, in the prison, Rick and the crew find some prisoners and find that they're alive while they're fixing up Herschel. And I was kind of surprised that Rick let them live, even from the get-go, because the past episode he was very much kill or be killed as long as I protect the baby. And I thought the perfect opportunity to kill or be killed would be against prisoners, yet he let them live.
Yeah, and you even have Lori telling him to be a stone-cold killer, telling him to handle his business with them.
Yeah, and it's just like with Shane, how she was the one who kind of put him over the edge and was like, he needs to be gone.
Now, did you see it coming with, I'm not sure of his name or if they ever mentioned it, the Latino guy who's kind of the ringleader. Did you see that coming when he would kill him? Before any of that happened, just first impression, did you see it coming that Rick would eventually kill him?
He was a big-time wild card.
Charlie Day. He was cutting the brakes.
Cutting off brakes. Big-time wild card. And, yeah, I thought, and the way he was aggressive towards Rick, and just even from the initial moments, yeah, I thought he would be done.
I wanted to get into this graphic that our good friend and frequent guest Neil Johnson sent us, and it's the title of his every episode of The Walking Dead. And a small sliver is great introduction, usually about something that happens just after or before the outbreak. I'd argue that this week is the best example of that first part because it's just the prisoners after they've hacked off Herschel's leg, just staring at Herschel's leg as they go back out and shooting zombies. So I'd say that follows that pretty well. Now, confirm or debate. The next part of it is about 50% is nothing happens.
Which I disagree with on this one. I think there was more action to this one than there has been, especially compared to Season 2, the middle of Season 2.
Right, I'd say this is more like Season 2, at least for this graph, whereas nothing would happen. Just because it was.
You mean the graph represents Season 2 more than it does?
Right, at least so far for Season 3. I mean,
right.
Who knows what we'll see.
Right.
I would imagine they would keep going with the direction that they're going. The next part is a small sliver, about 1%. It's in green, and the title is Someone Does Something Incredibly Stupid.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's Carl. I mean, you could just say that's Carl or Lori.
Right. Typically, 90% of the time, it was one of those two.
Right. And Carl does something incredibly stupid. He goes and breaks in to get the medical supplies that they didn't even really need.
Well, they did need to close up that wound.
The bleeding had already stopped.
Right, but I mean, it just was a part of the drama that they're.
It's not like there are other able-bodied people that could have helped him. I mean, he grows his hair long, and suddenly he thinks he's an outlaw,
and knows how to shoot a gun better, and yeah. So it was.
The next small portion is about. I'm not keeping up on my math here, so don't add these up. It's about 20%. It's gray. The title is "Holy Shit, Zombies,"
which did happen.
Which I'd say it's a bigger faction for this episode. We'll keep coming back to this graph. The next about 40% of it is in pink. Why do I continue to watch this show?
Because it gets real slow at that point.
We asked this very question last season. We were rewarded for it because the third season has been great. And in the blue is the last about 5%. Crazy ass cliffhanger ending. And now I have to watch the next episode. What was the cliffhanger, do you think, for this episode? I guess just kind of them leaving the two prisoners that were left.
Leaving the two prisoners on that ward, and also just how I always blank on her name. Sophia's mom, is it Cheryl maybe? How she did with the zombie corpse that she wanted to practice.
Right, she's doing this
cesarean on him.
The C-section on the zombie corpse.
Cesarean section on, right. I guess that was the cliffhanger for this one.
Yeah, so I guess they're kind of foreboding
Herschel's life in the mix of whether he's going to survive or not, and also that whole scene where Lori was giving him CPR and he spins back to life.
He pulled a Sandlot. He pulled a Wendy Peppercorn on them.
They were expecting him to come back as a zombie, but he ended up surviving.
Give her a smooch and passed right back out.
Exactly. So it was.
So I guess the three cliffhangers that we should be expecting throughout maybe the next episode, perhaps the season, is the fate of Lori's baby, Herschel's life hanging in the balance, and the prisoners.
Or the state of the prison. Well, and don't forget...
I mean, there's still lots of prison that's unexplored, I guess.
What about Andrea and...
Michonne. I guess they weren't even really shown in this episode, but I guess they showed in the preview.
They've teased that the two come to clash.
And I guess that's the character of the governor that everyone's been looking forward to, kind of takes them in. And I guess they eventually... I think they all come full circle with the group at some point, I guess is what we should be expecting.
The groups combined, yeah.
Now, like we said, this third season has been pretty much all action all the time. Do you think this is what the show should keep doing?
It's impossible to sustain.
Now, what do you think is a good balance, though? Because, I mean, last season, it was just them kind of sitting around on the farm the whole time.
Yeah, it was a horror drama at that point. It was too much.
But if you had an unlimited budget, though, not whether what you think it should or shouldn't be, if you could run the show any way that you wanted to, how would it be? Would you have it be like these first two, where it's just little talk, all action? That's what people are tuning in to see.
Right. They're tuning in more for the action than they are for the talk, and that's where...
I haven't met one person who says I really enjoy the drama in Walking Dead.
I'm so happy when Laurie speaks and when Carl rebels.
Yeah, I was really happy. There were really less zombies and just more of the drama that I like to see.
Ever since they canceled As the World Turns, this has been my replacement. I have not heard anyone say that, but... They're playing a lot to the comic book and the video game playing crowd, and I haven't read any comics. Have you read the comics?
No, I go online and compare after a couple episodes. If there's a character I don't know about, I'll read. Like last week when we read about Herschel and the other character that they compared to.
Right. I think I don't know, it's just, they're trying to make the story different for the comic book readers, and I think they're losing some of the inspiration in that.
So you think they should kind of branch off more on their own and experiment?
Right. And
that's kind of interesting. I know you never watched the show Dexter, or have you?
I have not.
I won't outline the plot from here, but it kind of went along the same lines, but I think they should do what Dexter did. Because Dexter is a show that the first season was based on the very first book in a series of books. And then the book went its separate ways and did its own thing, and the show went its separate ways. And the show has been much better than any of the books, which I'm not putting anything down on the Walking Dead comics, but they could definitely branch out and just do whatever they want. They have this whole big world to do whatever.
And the other benefit that they have is that the author of the comics is also one of the main producers of the show.
Right.
And so he can be full control of the balance.
Now maybe it could be something like, I agree with the budgetary limits that AMC has for the show, that the prison's a good storyline to follow, but maybe you just explore, I don't know, elsewhere, see what else has happened. I mean, they've been around the Atlanta area for 2.5 seasons.
Get another group, and I mean, the biggest mistake they made was not doing the original second season opener.
Now, would you like to define this a little bit for the listeners who haven't read the link?
They hired in the very beginning of season 1, Rick ends up in a tank and kills a zombie inside the tank, and they ended up hiring a famous actor.
I don't know if he was super famous. He was more of a well-known actor. He wasn't just a body double.
Stand-in, right? Yeah. He's not somebody they paid $5,000 and let him keep a T-shirt, And they had a whole plot of following that man before he became a zombie, and how the army was overrun, and how Atlanta fell and military bases fell, and they scrapped that idea due to budgetary reasons. That was the first mistake they made.
Yeah, I think this was the original season 2 opener, and the other thing they said was that it was going to be a parallel story as Atlanta fell, how the other survivors came to be where they were, because they don't really have much backstory throughout the series. So it would be this group of soldiers trying to maintain the city and eventually failing, leading to that man as a zombie in the tank with all them around them, and the characters before they meet up with Rick and Lori and Shane.
Right.
So that definitely would have been cool, and like PhilB said, they hired a well-known actor to play that zombie because they had that whole story in mind, but then they fired their showrunner right before season 2 started.
Right.
So that's a pity. But if you'd like to see that, that's the whole plot outline of that episode is on Ain't It Cool. If you do a quick Google search, you can find it on there. Now, if you follow our Twitter feed, or you live in the city of Pittsburgh or around it, or are friends with anyone who has social media, you'll know that Bruce Springsteen, a.k.a. The Boss, was in town last night. My fiancé and I were lucky enough to get tickets from my parents. PhilB, you lucked into tickets last minute, huh?
I did. I was lucky enough to go with my friend at Nicole Miller. I don't know if that's a real Twitter name. She got tickets from her parents because they weren't able to make it, and it was an epic show to be able to attend with her.
Now, you've never even seen a concert of that magnitude, have you?
I have not. The closest I came to was The Wall, Rogers Waters, The Wall at Console, but this was the biggest concert I've ever seen, and it also was the best concert I've ever seen.
Hands down?
Yeah, easily.
Now, when you think Bruce Springsteen, before you had seen the concert, what were you expecting? Just kind of like him get up there and kind of ramble through some songs?
No, well, I don't know. I remember he was a halftime show when the Steelers won the Super Bowl back in 05.
08.
08, okay. Yeah, and so I expected something. I mean, I kind of had a mini look into what a real Bruce Springsteen concert looks like, but it was pretty amazing, and his energy just continued and continued and continued. I mean, I was worn out just from having to concentrate so hard on following him running around stage.
It was crazy because you got these tickets last minute, and it turned out you sat just 10 rows in front of us out of the entire arena.
Yeah.
To be able to see you, and you actually had better seats than us.
Yeah, row A. It was pretty. I mean, there was nobody in front of us. We were at the first row of the second deck, and so there was nobody standing up and sitting down in front of us. It was a sweet view. We were dead center. I was dead center, like the most center seat you could get. Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
Now, did you immediately rush home and download some songs?
I didn't. I set up a Bruce Springsteen Pandora radio station. I didn't download anything because I've still got to narrow down my favorite songs. I have my favorite song that he performed, but I have to narrow down my favorite songs.
Well, segueing in a little bit, I'll just say, I mean, I've seen him a few times and I love him, and I'll leave it at that because I could talk all night about
How many times
Bruce.
have you seen him?
This was the third time, so I guess not that many, but
well, more than
the
one.
first time I ever saw him was in Pittsburgh when he went on his tour for The Rising, which was his album post 9/11. If you remember, they did that musical tribute,
right?
And he did a few songs for that, so he was inspired to write an album. That's my favorite album. It's called The Rising. It's like kind of him coping with it, and he wrote about it. And so I saw him then, and then I saw him in 2009. My last day of my junior year at Penn State, he performed at the basketball arena, and then last night was the third time I saw him.
All right, first time I saw Bruce.
But we wanted to segue in, and we've been doing kind of a new topic every podcast, and the topic was the song of the week, and we thought we'd do a Bruce Springsteen song in honor of the awesome concert that we saw last night. And PhilB, you wanted to go first with your song.
He did Pretty Flamingo, and it was an older song of his, and that some of the older band members knew, and some of the younger band members did not know. And so it was pretty neat seeing them get the dust off that record to play that song.
Right, and I don't know how much you know about his concerts, but it was a portion of a concert where he takes requests, and these requests are all just on billboards. So he'll collect the billboards in between some of the songs, and then they'll just find these songs, and they'll just play it as the band, which goes to show how talented they are.
Right.
Out of the entire catalog of songs.
Right. They
can just pick it up. I mean, and it's not just 2 or 3 people. This is maybe 20 people all on stage at once.
Right. 20 people on stage, plus he doesn't take all the requests, but there were a lot of signs down there, a lot of billboards down there for requests.
Now, you know who his drummer is, right? Max Weinberg. He was Conan's drummer.
Right.
He's probably the most deadpan member of their band.
Exactly.
Now, my favorite song of the concert, and it's one that I highly recommend, it's from Greetings from Asbury Park, is Spirit in the Night. That was a great song. And I also just wanted to highlight, if any of you guys follow Bruce Springsteen, I mean, it's kind of hard not to, you'll know that in the past year, their long-tenured saxophonist Clarence Clemens passed away, and they hired his nephew to kind of take his place in the band. And if you read the New Yorker article about him, it said that he was very timid at first, like he kind of didn't really know how to step into his shoes, but if you saw him last night, you would know that it hasn't really been a problem since, because he was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it just gave me chills thinking about the show last night.
And during one of the last encore songs, they played 10th Avenue Freeze Out, kind of another old song. They have a portion of the song where the lyrics are, and the big man joined the band, referring to Clarence Clemens. And at that point, everything just stopped. It got dark, and they kind of played about a 30-second to a minute,
It was a minute
just
and
a
half.
tribute to him, and it was really great to see that. I thought that was kind of one of the highlights.
The crowd went wild. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, they just cheered for about 2 or 3 minutes straight for that tribute.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And I think another great thing about his concerts are, usually when bands try to stop and talk and preach, you just really don't care what they have to say, and it's boring, and they're trying to fill time. But Springsteen just preaches to the crowd, and he says such specific things. Like, he brought up an event from 1984 in Pittsburgh, because, I mean, keep in mind, he tours worldwide every single year.
Right.
And he brought up a singular event, a charity event that he did in Pittsburgh in '84 for the steel workers. It's like it wasn't a soup kitchen, it was like a food bank. Rainbow Kitchen? Rainbow Kitchen.
Rainbow Kitchen.
It was a food bank for steel workers, and he said that was one of the most, the proudest things that he's ever done.
And I've never seen an audience of that size be so attentive to every word he had to say.
So attentive, but you were also saying that there's no generational gap. It just spans every generation from...
It's transgenerational. There were 12-year-old kids there, and there was the 74-year-old man sitting next to me. I mean, it was...
And he does a little something for everyone, too. I mean, when he sang Waiting on a Sunny Day, he brought a little girl up to sing with them. And when he played Dancing in the Dark, he brought, moms up to dance with them on stage. Also point out, if you watch the music video for Dancing in the Dark, a bunch of people know this, but it's Courtney Cox's first role ever. She dances in the music video on stage with him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's wearing his tight jeans, and he pulls her up on stage in the video, and he dances with her. The woman last night in Pittsburgh, the Yinzer, she was not Courtney Cox. She was a terrible dancer. But if you want a cool little tribute, you can check that out.
We got a text from Neil Johnson today asking us what fictitious creature could we own. If we could own a fictitious creature as a pet, which one would it be?
Which one would it be, PhilB?
Well, which one would yours be?
Well, I think mine... We don't have too much time to think about this because we got this right before we started recording, but of all the things that I can think of, and there's not too many, I would say the hippogriffs from Harry Potter, which are pretty much just griffins that J.K. Rowling renamed, but they'd be able to have a horse with wings that could fly me around.
And an eagle's head.
And an eagle's head, right. Well, I guess that's her little twist on it, I guess, but...
Well, it's lion's claws, eagle's head, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much the best of a lot of animals. And to have one of those, if I could tame it like they did and just kind of, fly around better than a bike. It's green. I want to go green with the hippogriff.
Exactly.
And I think that would be the best way. Just stable one outside, maybe keep it as a pet. It would kill a lot of birds with one stone, no pun intended.
I personally would choose the Nemean lion. It's a mythical creature.
What is that from?
It's the first of Hercules' 12 labors.
Okay.
He's sent on 12 labors to prove his worth as a god to Zeus, and his first is to kill the Nemean lion.
Is this in the cartoon as well?
I don't remember.
The Disney cartoon?
I ignored the Disney cartoon one. And it's the Nemean lion's skin couldn't be pierced by any mortal weapons. And
So why would you want this as a pet?
Because it would be awesome. It could be a sweet attack.
You would just
lion.
chain it up outside your house, like beware of this lion?
No, if it's a pet, it's tamed, so I'd be able to control it.
It doesn't sound like it's very tameable. It's got impierceable skin. You're just going to toss it steaks and be buddies with it?
Well, I'd be friends with it. You own 2 cats. It would just be the same thing.
Excuse me. A cat is a little different from a lion that Hercules has to kill.
Well, regardless,
All I do is clean up after them and feed them.
I can clean up after a lion and feed
Just scoop its poop in the yard and give it raw steaks.
Exactly. But it's...
Put a little beer in its...
Occasionally, and the way Hercules...
So you're saying it'd be like a Turner and Hooch scenario. Have you seen that movie, the Tom Hanks? Yeah. It'd be exactly like that. You'd grow to be friends throughout.
It'd be I'd say they could probably make it about an hour and 20-minute movie.
About you growing as a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Learning to live with a beast that can't be killed by mortal weapons.
I think I would pay to see that movie. To send the script out.
All right.
Now, if you follow current events like we love doing, you will see, or really if you just don't live under a rock, you'll know that Hurricane Sandy is fastly approaching. Who knows where it'll...
Barreling up north.
The perfect storm, if you will, coming not really near us, but around us, enveloping some of the coastal states. And I pose a question to you. If you say you were living in one of these areas. I know it's hitting Philadelphia State College hard. Say you live on like kind of a coastal town, not on the beach itself. It's not going to destroy your house, but you need to stay behind and you need to shore it up. What would you be doing to prepare it right now? You are a survivalist, if you will.
I wouldn't consider myself a survivalist. They're kind of crazy. I mean, I have the FEMA recommended 3-day supply of food all set aside.
Wait, so what is the FEMA recommended 3 days of? Is it just
3 days worth of food per person in your house? You know, lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
So it's just like a non-perishable?
Yeah, non-perishable cans.
Just cans of stuff.
Yeah, I personally am fond of the Giant Eagle boxed soup because they're stackable. And packable.
What is it? Just add boiling water?
No, it's ready to serve.
Oh, okay.
Just heat it up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're like 2 for $3 or something like that. They're pretty cheap compared to some of the Campbell's variety soup. But anyway, just the typical enough water per person per day, and
make sure your devices are charged up.
Make sure. Well, I've got a solar charger just in case.
Solar charger. How does? I mean, obviously, besides getting power by the sun, how does this work?
Oh,
solar charger for what? Is it?
It's a Solio. It's a Solio bolt, and it has a USB connection and a micro USB connection, so that you can charge any USB devices to it.
Have you tried this out yet?
Yeah, and it stores power for a year. So I charged it the instant I got it for Christmas. And then so I'm going to have to recharge it this December.
Have you used it like at your cabin and everything?
No. Cabin, we have electricity. I haven't actually used it. I used it a couple times over the summer just to be green for the day, you know, to reduce the use of electricity on my cell phone. But otherwise, I haven't used it in a power outage situation.
Now, let's say your house is all shored up. What would you be doing to kill time? You're waiting out the storm.
Well, I would have a 3-day supply worth of beer as well, in addition to the 3-day supply worth of food and water.
Just be watching Workaholics on your iPad?
As long as I had power, I'd be watching, yeah. I'd be trying, on my cell phone, email, reading books on my Kindle.
I have to agree, I would be doing the same. I would also... I think it's fun. I mean, I would love to go to a hurricane party. I mean,
yeah. What other
I almost kind of envy these. I have a bunch of friends who work in New York and Philly, and they just
DC.
They're more excited than anything because I mean, what do you have to lose? They don't really own property. They just have apartments. They're just weathering it out. I mean,
public schools were.
Yeah, they have work called off. Schools canceled.
All the T isn't up, or not the T. The T's Pittsburgh.
I mean, besides having property damage and maybe risking injury,
and car damage.
I'm almost somewhat jealous that we get the worst part of it. We get a little bit of snow and just annoying rain.
And highly likely, just said on the news, highly likely that we'll lose power for a couple days.
Really?
Or at least lose power at some point, yeah.
Well, then I guess it's good that I got those 2 cans of soup and I charged up my devices.
Exactly. I got.
Hopefully we get this podcast out before we lose power. This could be our last
podcast for a couple of days.
Yeah. What will people do without it? Now, while we're on the topic of survival, you recently finally saw the Hunger Games movie. Now, you've read the books, right?
Yes.
You've read all 3?
I read the first and a half. First one and the second half. The second one. I hear it trails off.
Yeah, well, I mean, the third one trails off a little bit. I won't spoil the books for anyone who hasn't read them.
This winter, I'll complete I'll complete the second one and the third one.
It's a good Kindle book because you don't really want to buy the actual book. It's just something to keep on there.
I actually downloaded them for my mom today. She wanted the second one. She has finished the first one. She's on vacation the next couple of days. Wants the second one and third one.
Whoa.
But yeah, I just saw the movie and it was a flop of a movie.
Now, why do you think it was a flop? Because, I mean, it obviously made boatloads of money like people thought, and I actually thought it was about the best adaptation they could have done given the audience. It's like the Harry Potter movies, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I think they didn't...
Now, is it an acting thing, a casting thing,
it's not
adaptation?
It's neither of those. It's the adaptation. I think that
because they only changed minor things.
But they didn't get any of the emotional aspect behind it. There's all this emotion of the inner dialogue that Katniss has about how Peeta decides to go on training on his own. She spends so much time...
But they mention that in the movie.
gloss over it. I think that there were 5 points of the book where the inner dialogue were essential to moving the plot along.
They have to cut out a lot of it, though, for time's sake, though. So what would you have sacrificed instead?
I understand that you have to cut out some of the time.
Maybe some of the pomp and circumstance of the, getting beautified.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one line of dialogue, of internal dialogue, could have compensated for some of that. Just to show that I think the character Katniss just falls flat compared to who she is in the book. She's a much more rebellious girl in the book, and she just seems to be a grumpy girl in the movie. In the book, it's her against the world. In the movie,
in the movie, it's just more of the look at the romance between her and Peeta and the will they, won't they, which is it's a big part of the book too. But the book also delves into the dystopian government and the how they're repressed.
You pick up on that, but I think the emotion that Katniss has drives that home, and they just don't have any of that emotion in the movie.
Will this prevent you from seeing the next two? Because you said it wasn't the actors and it wasn't really any of the set pieces. It was just how they developed it.
Let me get through the second half of the second book and the third one, and I'll probably end up I redboxed it. I was at my cabin, so I redboxed it. I'll probably end up redboxing the next two.
That's really surprising that you don't like it. I think they cast it well. I think.
Oh, they definitely.
They got Katniss right. I think anyone could have really played Peeta.
Gale.
Gale was good.
Well, I don't know. Gale wasn't. I imagine Peeta. And Gale are competing forces in the general book. Gale being the sly one that she likes to slink through the woods with, and Peeta being the big, hefty, strong guy. I think.
See, I got the opposite from reading the books, but I think you're right.
I think Peeta could have been heavier, not heavier, but more muscular.
Like you.
Yeah, like me. I see myself as more of a Peeta character, more muscular and handsome. Anyway, and then Gale, I think, a little bit shorter, a little bit scrawnier, just because you have to be nimble to be in the woods, and he just didn't seem to be that nimble.
I think the only one they really needed to get right in casting was Katniss, but the problem I have with these new movies that are for teens is they have to cast really the flavor of the week for these movies, and those two guys are just, because the one's marrying Miley Cyrus and the other one's kind of the up-and-comer who's just okay. I mean, I don't know. They had to dye his hair blonde and he has to go around and he's just kind of the teenager that I kind of want to punch in the face most of the time. That's just me.
I agree with that. Yeah, I just didn't like the movie.
Well, that's unfortunate. But on that note, we've reached our time limit for this week's podcast, and what better way to end than me talking about wanting to punch a teenager in the face. We'd like to remind you to follow us on Twitter. We are at BenD PhilB Show. Again, that's just at BenD PhilB Show. Follow us on there. Spread the word, and until next week, we are signing off. I'm BenD.
I'm PhilB, and thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.